Hey, what's up everybody? Today is Christmas. You are most likely surrounded or hopefully surrounded by people that you love. If you're the 172, it's a possibility that all of these people may very well be NPCs. Is it possible for someone from the natural reality, from the natural world, to actually not just love an NPC, but fall in love with an NPC? And we're also going to be talking about, is it possible to take that love out of the simulation into the real world? And is it possible for us to take that program and put it inside of an animatronic that is as lifelike as someone in the natural world? And that's today's topic.
I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
Must have freaked you out coming home after the whole defrosting thing.
Takes some getting used to.
Okay, this is a really good start looking at the movie Captain America Winter Soldier. What did he say to him about freaking up after the whole thawing out thing, right? So what we have here, Captain America was born in like 1918. He was frozen in, I think, 1945, and then he is thawed out in the year like 2012. So there's a huge gap in between a 1945 and 2012. And he runs into this other superhero, Falcon, when they're out jogging somewhere, and what does this man tell him is one of the things that he needs to look up?
Marvin Gaye, 1972 Troubleman soundtrack. Everything you missed, jammed into one album.
I'll put it on the list.
Okay, and as you see, he tells him to look up the 1972 Troubleman Marvin Gaye soundtrack. I mean, the years that he was gone was in between of the years 1945 and 2012. Yet they made it purposely a point to point out 1972. When you write a script, you don't just write a script and just throw any old thing in there. I know I went to school for script writing. I know I was an actor. I understand how that works. Everything that you do it for a reason and for a purpose. And if you look on the list there and he says, I'll put it on the list, he has the moon landing as one of the things on the list. The last time they went to the moon was in 1972. Whether that has anything to do with it or not, I don't really want to make it too much of a stretch. But however, if this is all preemptive programming, it's hard not to look at every single thing in there. So then after that, then if you watch the movie further into the movie, we go to this scene.
He's been dead for years.
First correction, I am Swiss. Second, look around you. I have never been more alive. In 1972, I received a terminal diagnosis. Science could not save my body. My mind, however, that was worth saving. On 200,000 feet of data banks, you are standing in my brain.
How did you get here?
Invited.
It's Operation Paperclip after World War II. SHIELD recruited German scientists with...
And there you go. So this is going to get us going in the direction of understanding NPCs. Can you love an NPC? Can you fall in love with an NPC? And what happens? Can you take the NPC out of the simulation with you? As you see in that movie, again, they bring up 1972. He says that science could not save his body. However, his mind was worth saving. So just during that movie alone, they're telling you about somebody who was cryo-frozen, pretty much, because he was frozen. His body was preserved. And then they show you the moon landing, right? So, which also last time was in 1972. The man says that he was Swiss, which we know that the Switzerland, the countries that CERN occupies. And then he says that his body, they couldn't save his body, so they had to preserve his mind. mind. Well, you have he says 1972 there, and then earlier in the movie, they say 1972 again, which there's the same year. He talks about Troubleman 1972, and then later on he tells it, this says about the 1972 with preserving and saving his mind. So being thawed out in 1972 Troubleman, and later on hearing that your mind has been preserved since the year 1972 on 200,000 gig of data banks or whatever the hell he says there. And then also you have the fact that they bring up the Operation Paperclip, which if you don't know anything about DARPA, yeah, I'm gonna say that it's a good possibility. DARPA had a lot to do with a lot of the scientists that came from Operation Paperclip. They ended up going to work for DARPA. So let's get started, because this is a really exciting topic to talk about, and I know you guys are all ready to hear this. If you have not seen the new movie Tron Legacy, it is about Sam Flynn. He goes into the program that his father created. He was like the big video game creator in 1982. However, we know that video games were created in 1972, but in 1982, Tron is created. It's about somebody who's from the natural world who actually goes into a simulation. His son actually finds a way into the same simulation. You have this reunion between father and son who both come from the natural world but are now in a simulation. And then there's a girl there. You can see like they're very attracted to one another. And so what happens in this simulation that you're in right now, and you fall in love with somebody? Will that person, can you take them out of the simulation? In the movie Tron, he actually does take her out of the simulation with him into the natural world. And then you see her just as she was in a simulation. You see her in the natural world driving around with him on his motorcycle. As you see in the beginning, when she came and found him, she picked him up and took him in her car, her simulated car. And then when they go into the natural reality, then she gets on the motorcycle with him and he takes her with him into the natural world. This is most likely not a possibility. You're asking something to manifest from the simulation into the natural world. Most likely that will not happen. However, there is other possibilities. If you fall in love with somebody, or you have a family or something or you have someone that you love inside this simulation, it is possible that they will give you that same data, like a way to take that memory, that whole simulation. So that is a possibility there. But no, I do not believe that you can actually just physically take them out of the simulation and make them manifest in the real world. But I do have good news for you. So when we look at the movie Infinity Wars, Vision is not a natural human being. Vision is actually an animatronics that has AI, advanced AI in it. So what we're seeing here in this movie is she actually falls in love with him as if he is a natural human. Now, she's a natural human, but he's not. And you see that at the end of the movie when Thanos pulls the stone out of his head, the Mind Stone, and kills him. And then you can see that he no longer looks like a natural human being anymore. You can tell that he's just an animatronic. He's just like kind of like an android, and I don't really want to say android in a way. So what does that mean for us in this simulation? It means that if there's someone that you fall in love with inside the simulation, I'm sure that they can already do this. If there is someone that you fall in love with, an AI program inside this simulation, that when you come out of the simulation, that you may be able to transfer all memories, all data of everything from that AI program into an animatronic, lifelike human of the person that was inside of the simulation. I don't know how much that would probably cost, maybe a lot of money, but it may be very much possible. They could take all of the memories, everything that you shared with that NPC inside of the simulation, and put it into the physical world by putting it into this physical body that is very much almost human. And if you don't believe that you can actually fall in love with a machine and actually love it and actually love it like a real human being, well, they've been programming. This is not a new idea. If you don't remember 1977, the movie Star Wars, when it came out, we saw that there was this very strong connection between Luke Skywalker and R2-D2. And the funny part about that is when he was on the back of the X-Wing and R2-D2 got shot, and I'm pretty sure he got hit, and we all thought that R2-D2 was dead, that was an emotional impact on people who were just watching the movie. So to think that it's not possible to take the simulation, the NPC out of the simulation and take their programming and put it into an animatronic that is almost as lifelike and as real in the natural world and look like that person, everything about them, and have all their memories and everything, and you not have that same attachment and not still carry on? I mean, I don't see how that's not a possibility. It is very important that we do treat the NPCs and we love them and we respect them and we grow with them inside the simulation, because you don't know what the possibilities are when we come out of this simulation. And then of course, then you see even in the movie Endgame, when you see Scarlet Witch is there at the end with Hawkeye and they're looking over the water and they're speaking or talking about, you can see that she truly misses him because she loved him. Even though he was an animatronic, an android, an NPC, he wasn't he wasn't naturally born into the world. He was created by other human beings through mechanical means and AI, and that lifelike was very much important to her, that she mourned his death. And you can see that that's very much a possibility. And that's going to take us on to the next subject, is about children. So what about those people who cannot have children in the natural world, right? Like they're not able to have children. Like maybe something's wrong, you can't have children. Maybe when you come out of this whole thing too, and you've been frozen for so long, maybe you actually become sterile and you cannot have children anymore. That could be a possibility too. You may possibly be able to do that same process of bringing your a child that you loved inside the simulation and have them put into an animatronic to be there with you in the natural world. And that's come from the movie AI, the artificial intelligence. When you watch that movie, and I don't know about you, but for me, it definitely is a tearjerker, and I'm not a crybaby at all. But the whole scene where she has to try to let go of this animatronic, even though if you don't know anything about the movie, their natural son is not clicking with the animatronic son, the AI, the artificial intelligence son, and it becomes a problem to where they have to get rid of the animatronic AI son. And when she has to do that, she cannot take him to have him deactivated. She simply cannot take what some people may just consider a machine, an android. She could not just simply take it back to where it came from and back to, and I don't want to say it because it's like a he, it's a person when you really think about it, because it becomes a person because we become attached to him emotionally, and those emotions are given back to us, so it becomes different. It's not like just taking your car in and turning it in for another one, or just taking it to the impound. She could not take this, what was now like a child to her, and could not take him to be deactivated. And because of that, she actually takes him into the woods, and she has this whole scene where she's, telling him to stay away from humans and all this, and for him to go out into the natural world and to be in that natural world as an animatronic, as an NPC inside of this machine's body. Because really, when you look at it, when it all comes down to it, that is an NPC in the physical natural world. So yes, it's possible for you even to take the child of an NPC inside of this simulation and bring them into the natural world by taking that AI, by taking that NPC program and putting it into a identical animatronic child's body. That way they can be there with you. You can have a whole family. I don't know how much that would cost, probably a lot of money, but it's possible. You could have an entire family of animatronics waiting for you when you go into the natural world, because if you've been in this simulation for a very long time, the people that you knew and loved are not going to be the same age. They're not going to be there anymore. They have either passed on, if you've been in here for like 100 years, 150, 200, 400 years, they have passed on, your family line has maybe changed and everything has changed, but it's possible that you could take those people from right now in this simulation in your family and take them into the natural world. However, it's a good possibility you're going to grow old and they may not grow old. And with all of that being said, and talking about the simulation and loving NPCs and stuff, we always have to go back to the movie Vanilla Sky, because in that movie, they specifically point out that there was a dog that was frozen and thawed out and brought back to life in Arizona. So they're telling you that about Alcor, because that's where Alcor was created in 1972, aired in Arizona. They tell you about life extension, LE, which is the same thing. It's cryogenics. And they're telling you that you're in a simulation while your body was being frozen. So they're telling you right there. And DARPA, it was 1972, which you guys already know about all that stuff. In this time that he's in, this time loop that he's in, he remembers a woman that he had a brief moment with, that he fell in love with, fell head over heels with, but he did not get the girl that time because something had happened to him that disfigured him. He felt almost like he wasn't even alive anymore. And he resulted to going to Alcor. We're just gonna call it out, Alcor. So he goes to Alcor, wants to sign himself over to them in the case that he dies. And before he dies, he's healthy. He can still live, but he doesn't want to live the way he's living. So he calls them and tells them that, hey, takes a bunch of pills. They come to the hospital, they get him, they take him, they put him in Alcor, and in his simulation, as his body is being preserved, in the simulation, he remembers that girl that he had a very brief moment with, but in this simulation, he plays out a whole love affair with her. Like, they're very much in love, and they have this relationship. Of course, things kind of go bad if you watch the movie, and, you know, he's having like a bad simulation. But how many times did he go through that time loop with her where it wasn't a bad simulation? It could have been 20, 30, 100 times. But at this point, he actually goes through a bad simulation, which exposes the fact that he's in a simulation, and then now he wants to come out of it. She will not be there in the natural world. He fell in love with her he actually fell in love with her inside of the simulation. Unless we go back to all the other things where you could take it all out into animatronics. So it is possible in this simulation that somebody outside in the natural world that you just may briefly had something with in this simulation, that you actually really fall in love with that person and your fantasy comes true. And now maybe you have a whole family with them and everything. And that when the time comes and you come out of this simulation, that you don't really have to leave them behind. There's a good possibility we can go all the way back to putting that NPC into the animatronics. So that woman that he fell in love with in the movie Vanilla Sky, she probably most likely has passed on, because if you remember in the movie, he says that you have been in this simulation for over 100 and something years. 100 and something years, that girl is not going to be there anymore. But when he comes out of this simulation, if he can take that AI, that NPC, and put it in a lifelike animatronic that looks just like her, he can continue that love with that NPC in the natural world. And with that, guys, I think that this is probably one of the better, most positive messages I have been able to give out about NPCs in a simulation. And that's why when I have told you over and over again many times in my videos to love NPCs, I care about this world, I care about the NPCs. Don't get hung up on movies like The Matrix and other movies like that where they're just making it like all the NPCs are all bad and the simulation is bad, because see, that stuff is all negative and that's not what you paid for to be in here. And that's not why you paid for to have cryostasis, you know, and nobody's gonna waste the time and the money to freeze you and do all this and to go all these things just to keep you in prison. That seems like it's a waste of time. It seems like a waste of money when we know right now in this simulation that people would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, $180,000 actually, to be honest, $180,000 to actually have the process happen, to have life extension. So why would somebody waste the time to imprison you and entrap you in here to do that? And with that, hey, you know, Merry Christmas.
곳에 유일하게 남은 거라고 너의 그림자 외로움보다 그리움이 날 괴롭힌다 손에 잡힐 것만 같은 너의 웃음소리 모래성처럼 힘없이 흩어진 순간들이 매일 밤 가위처럼 날 눌러 꿈속에서조차 네 이름을 또 불러 모든 걸 변하게 하는 시간 앞에도 변하지 않는 건 나는 너의 queen, you my ruler 아무 대답 없는